Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today is going to be my second week vlog for SPOOKOPLATHON. It's Tuesday. I didn't start this vlog yesterday. We had a lot going on, but I have started the book that I'm reading for this week. So in case you missed my last video, I will insert a clip here from that video. Okay. So we got a 4. And last time we ended up on Ghost Tour. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, Shirley Jackson. So as you can see, I landed on Shirley Jackson at the end of last week. And so I picked up A Fever in the Heartland by Timothy Egan. And I'm about a third of the way through. It is a nonfiction book. It reads like nonfiction. It's interesting though, because I don't know if it's the foreword or just the preface or what it is, but the author is who reads the book on the audiobook, which is what I'm doing. I'm listening to it. And he mentions that everything in the book is like directly quoted and taken from primary source material, which I think is really interesting. So this book is a historical nonfiction, and it's about the KKK in this town in Indiana in the 20s. And so apparently in the 1920s, the KKK was coming back because it had been made illegal at the end of the 19th century, or like middle to end. I think it was like the 1870s, 1880s. And then now, 50 years later, it's pretty much back full force. It's like something like a third of the population of Indiana was a part of the KKK at this time. And it's talking about how people who weren't a part of the KKK were interacting with the KKK and how their lives were being threatened. It also talks about how the KKK had evolved at this point from being just about wanting to reinstate slavery and or get rid of every Black person that lived in the South. And honestly, there were branches in the North. So it wasn't just a Southern thing, which I think is something that people mistake. There just weren't as many Black people in the North, because the reason that Black people were in the South is because they were brought there to be slaves. So that's like a common misconception that I see, but racism was alive and well in the entire country. In this book, they're talking about how it has evolved from just being against Black people to being also against Jewish people and against Catholic people. And I think this is really interesting because I've always heard people talk about how, oh, we didn't like Irish immigrants in this country, we didn't like Italian immigrants in this country. A couple other sub branches, whatever, of Europe that we didn't really enjoy having come over when they first started coming over to this country. Do you want to know why we didn't like having them? Because they were Catholic. Isn't that interesting? The US doesn't have a national religion. That's part of the whole thing, is that people who came here originally, on the Mayflower, were fleeing religious persecution, so they didn't want that to be a thing. They wanted everyone who came here to be able to freely practice their religion, but slowly that morphed into just being Protestantism, because it was primarily Protestant sub-branches that were coming over here. And so, because we didn't want Catholic people in positions of power, we didn't want Catholicism to take over the United States, we didn't really want Catholics anywhere. That's why we didn't like Italian immigrants, that's why we didn't like Irish immigrants. Also, traditionally, the immigrants that were coming at the time that they were coming over here were poorer. They were coming because they were fleeing some sort of persecution in their home country, or because they needed a new opportunity, right? Their life in their home country wasn't good, which is similar to what's happening now. We don't want people coming over to the US who don't have a lot of money. That's the whole argument. And I just think it's really interesting that it's all about it's very similar to Hitler's idea of purity of the race, except it's not solely focused on being Jewish or a minority. It's it's focused on being white and Protestant and American born. So it's just very interesting, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that the KKK was against Catholics and Jewish people. This book also talks about how they opened up a women's league for the KKK and how that really brought it to everybody's home front. And they also have the Ku Klux Kitties, which is kind of like the Hitler Youth, and how that is how kids got involved and got indoctrinated really young. I also think it's interesting, I'm sorry, sort of bouncing all over the place with this, but I didn't know this either. Apparently, the reason that they originally wore white sheets and hoods was because they were trying to scare people, and they wanted people to think they were ghosts. And that was what originally people thought. So they would have chains and bones, and they would pretend to be ghosts while they were doing horrific things, burning houses and tarring people and just really horrible things. But I didn't know that the originally it was a group of 30 guys in, I think it was Tennessee, but don't quote me on that, who just would dress like ghosts because they wanted to like chase the black people away. Like they were trying to scare them away, like a haunted house, but also kill and mutilate and rape and all this stuff. I just didn't know that that was like, for a sliver of time, people thought it was ghosts. And then also the burning crosses thing didn't start until the KKK reinvigorated in the 20s. And it was only because of that movie, Birth of a Nation. The KKK hadn't burned any crosses before that movie came out, but in the movie, I think they burn a cross. And so that became like their insignia. And I thought that was really interesting because I didn't know that. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about it. I believe, so way earlier on, we got like a glimpse at where this book is going. And then the author sort of backtracked and is like building us up to that point again. But it's basically about this guy, DC Stevenson, who is just like a no good vagabond. But he ends up becoming the Grand Dragon of the KKK in Indiana. And I don't know what all the positions mean. I'm assuming if it's important, I'll get told, but I know that's pretty high up. And so he just is like a bad dude for obvious reasons, but like also like in his personal life, I feel like a lot of people have the tendency to be like, oh, well, you know, this person's a racist, but they were, you know, they donated to their church and they did all these good things. And it's like, no, the KKK people were just doing bad things and they were all like, not all, but like, yeah, they were all bad people. I feel confident saying that. I don't think that's a bridge too far. But he especially like was just a liar and a thief, and he got kicked out of his brigade in the army because he kept stealing from people. He was a drunk. He had all these like things that were wrong with him. But then outwardly, when he was in charge of the KKK in Indiana, he was like promoting, temperance, where you don't drink at all. And like promoting monogamy and like familial relationships, like keeping the family whole, even though he had like left a wife and a baby in Oklahoma when he was much younger after beating the shit out of them. And then he like almost killed his most recent wife. And so she moved back with her parents, and he's just always like sleeping around, doing whatever he wants, getting drunk, doing drugs. Like, I don't know what drugs he's doing, but they talk about him like getting high sometimes. I don't know. Again, I don't know what drugs were around in the 20s. I imagine similar ones to the ones that are around now, but not the chemical strands. I don't know. So that's happening. But we've already been introduced to Madge, who we know is the woman from the back of the book. Madge is going to be like an integral part in taking down the KKK. And she's young and beautiful, and she meets DC Stevenson at this dinner at the governor's mansion. And so I'm excited to learn more about her story, but where I'm at, we're pretty much recapping how DC Stevenson got to the point where he is. They also talk about how like the KKK bought Valparaiso University and wanted it, so they made it to where like no black people could go, and it was like an all-American curriculum. And then just like there's all these news articles in there about like trashing the way that they're teaching people. Someone like vandalized the building that said "Abandon all brains, ye who enter here." So it's nice to know that there were so many people who were like adamant against the KKK, I guess. And like I said, there's like 1/3 of Indiana at this time was either a member of the KKK or was like associated with the KKK. I don't know exactly where the line is drawn. That's the other thing. DC Stevenson was stealing people's membership fees. That's how he made all his money, is he made people pay him to be a part of this membership, and then he just kept the money and built himself up. So that's what he was doing. I just think it's interesting, like 1/3 of Indiana at this time was a member or associated with KKK, but that means 2/3 weren't. And so it's just interesting to know that like 2/3 of people either like didn't care enough to join, like their hatred didn't run that deep, which is probably for a lot of people what it was. And then a lot of the articles are about people who are like terrified of this, and they end up leaving their homes because the KKK is so adamant that every white person join them that they're like, I don't really want to be a part of this. So they're bouncing. And then I also wanted to point out that Indiana, it's called like the north of the South or something because it's very close to Kentucky. It's like this shape, so Kentucky's here and Ohio's here, and that's where the Mason-Dixon line is. So it's scooped under Indiana, so Indiana was technically part of the North during the war, but it seems clear that a lot of people like identify really with the Southern tradition, and it's specifically the Southern tradition of racism here. But I didn't realize that they had the highest membership of KKK at this time, and that's where the KKK like really came back, was Indiana. So I'm learning all of that in this book. So anyways, I'm gonna keep reading it. I will let you know more fun things that I learn, and then I will pick another book when I pick another book. But I wanted to just come on here and give you that update, let you know how I'm doing. I'm still doing this, and I will let you know when I have another update soon. Hello, it is still Tuesday, but I just finished, what is it called? A Fever in the Heartland. And I think I'm gonna end up giving it 4 stars. It was very informative. I really enjoyed my read of it. And I feel like I learned a lot, actually. I will say, just a warning, if it like sounds like something up your alley, the reason that Madge like was able to take down the KKK as whatever the subtitle is or whatever, is because she came forward with allegations of like brutal rape. So, and that's all like very detailed in the book. So that is something you cannot read. I don't recommend this one. I think you should skip it. And also, she's not the first person. So there's lots of like firsthand accounts of that kind of thing, which is difficult to read. I feel like there's a difference, for me at least, in reading something that is like detailing like the torture elements of it from the perspective of the person doing it. It's almost like a clinical view in this, where it's like factually stated, so that doesn't bother me as much. I hope that makes sense. Not that it doesn't bother me, but like it's easier for me to, like psychologically it's easier on me. Hope that makes sense. So I'm gonna pick my next read. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I will say the ending, I understand that this book is talking about like the revival of the Klan in the 20s and then how it like went back into the shadows, I guess. But I think this book at the end sort of highlights all of the things and how like Klan membership was down to less than 100,000 people nationwide, and like all these different things about how it like disbanded. But the KKK is alive and well. So I want to like clarify that, I guess, because the book sort of, I think it's ending on like a positive note, but it kind of makes it sound like the Klan is not around anymore, which, as we saw as recently as like 2016 with the Charlottesville protest, was that 2016? I think it was. It's still out there, and like people are getting bolder about it. So that was interesting. But I am going to pick my next read. I will probably not start it right now because I do want to finish my reread of The Turn of the Key. I've also started reading a fan fiction, so I'm trying to see if I can like dark romance, okay? And it was recommended to me by Jen from the Book Refuge. She did a video on the darkest romances she's ever read. I have a hold on Butcher and Blackbird because my best friend from college read it and really loved it. So I kind of want to read that. That's the serial killer romance that was like really popular for a while. And then there's another one that I don't remember what it's called, but I found it on Everand because I saw it on TikTok. And I haven't listened to that because it's an audiobook, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about listening to it as an audiobook. But this is a fan fiction, so it's just on AO3, I guess. I can't remember, like A World Not Fit to Live In, and it's like Hermione and Lucius Malfoy. So she's like basically forced into the home of Lucius and Draco, and Draco's like horrible to her, and then Lucius is like kind of better to her, but also like not great. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, but apparently they fall in love. I don't know, so I'm gonna read it and see how I feel. I think is like over time, probably not right at once, because it's like 250,000 words, as these fan fictions are wont to be. So I'm gonna pick my next read for this readathon though, and I will let you know what it is, or you will see what it is. Okay, so I got the dice roller up, and 8, but it is a double. So I'm gonna move 8 forward first. Oh shoot, this is the wrong thing. Okay, so the last prompt was Shirley Jackson. So 8 from there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A big book, a book that's more than 500 pages. Oh boy. And then because I rolled a double, I'm gonna try to pick another prompt and see if I can't combine the prompts. That's how I did this last year, and that's how I'm gonna try to do it this year. So we've got another double. Shit. Am I gonna do 3? I guess. Let's go 12 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Future. So that's like a rainy day book, a book that I've been saving for a rainy day. Oh my gosh. Okay. And let's see what the last one is. Please don't be another double. If it's another double, I think I'm just gonna pick more books. 4. Okay. Not a double. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. Jason, which I think is a book that has 13 letters in the title. So I'm gonna see if I can find a book that I've been saving for a rainy day, has 13 letters in the title, and it's more than 500 pages. Wish me luck. Hello. So I've managed to come up with 3 options for myself for this, and I'm not really sure which one I'm going to go with because, well, I'll just tell you what the options are. First, House of Leaves, okay? This is a book that I have been like putting off because I wanted to do a dedicated reading vlog of this, like so many people did, but that was like a year ago, 2 years ago now, and I never did it. But I do own it, and I don't know a ton about this book. I know it's horror, which fits for the time of year, and it's got like, it's supposed to have like footnotes. Well, I'm not really finding anything now, but like footnotes, and it's just weird. Apparently it's a weird book, and it's supposed to be like about a haunted house. I think I've had some people say that it's like really, really scary. I've heard other people say that it's just like really strange. So I do really want to read this. It is like 700 pages, I think. So that makes me nervous, especially because I would want to physically read this. So if I did this one, I think I would spin again, or not spin, roll again, and pick an audiobook for the other prompt. So that way I don't just have this behemoth going at once. The other options I have, I could read Dr. Zhivago, which I don't know what it's about, but it's a classic that I've always meant to read someday, and someday could be today. I will say I'm not super thrilled about reading that right now, but it is 600 pages or something, and I do have an audiobook available to me, so I would be able to listen to that one as an audiobook. And then the other one that is an option is The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown, which is the 3rd book in his like Angels and Demons Da Vinci Code series. And I read the first 2 books in high school, loved them. I actually own that book as well, but it's somewhere downstairs. I don't know where it is. Maybe on the shelf, I guess. I haven't looked. But there is an audiobook of that. And it's like, I have 3 library cards. Have I talked about this before? Did you hear that? I don't know what that was. I have 3 library cards. So I have my library card from where I lived before, and then I have a library card in Kansas City, and then Harris County does a free library card, so I have one for there, Harris County, Texas. I don't know if it's still a thing that you can do, but I did it, and I have it. So I think it's my dishwasher telling me that the dishwasher is done. Anyways, all 3 of them, it's the audiobook of The Lost Symbol is available soon, which means less than 2 weeks usually. So I don't know if it's worth it to do that, and then I would still probably roll again and pick something else to read in the interim. But those are the 2 that seem most likely. I might put it on hold, and then tomorrow after work, if it hasn't come through, I'll go with House of Leaves and I'll roll again, question mark. I think that might be what I do. Because to be honest with you, none of these books were books that I was planning on reading right now. But I think those 2 fit better because, well, I don't really want to read Dr. Zhivago, so I don't think I'm going to do that. You can let me know if you think that's a mistake in the comments below. I've heard people like it, I think. I don't know. But I've heard a lot about this. I'm just nervous to pick up this book, knowing the trouble I've been having with physically reading. Because I don't think I'd want an audiobook of this. Do they even have an audiobook of this? I thought there were things that you like had to figure out what order to read it in. So anyways, I don't know. But I think I'm going to put the other one on hold, and I will let you know when the hold comes through, if it does, or tomorrow I will let you know if I am going to pick this up, and then I will roll again for an audiobook prompt. I think that might be the safest bet, but for now, I'm gonna go get ready for bed and go to bed because I'm very tired, and I will see you later. Okay, so it's Wednesday night. I'm in my kitchen because I'm about to cook dinner, and I usually like to listen to an audiobook while I cook, but my hold of The Lost Symbol hasn't come in yet, so I think I've decided I am going to try to read House of Leaves for the like trio combo prompt thing that I just got. I haven't started it yet, but that is what I'm gonna do. I may regret this, but that means that I'm gonna roll again and hope that I just get 1 prompt and hope that I can fulfill it with an audiobook. And really, I'm hoping I can fulfill it with an audiobook that I already have from my library on hold, because I got a bunch of holds in, and I have a couple books out, and so I would like to read one of those, but let's see what we get. Okay, 10, and we are on Jason, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Broomstick. Okay, so Broomstick is apparently a book that has a clean or simple looking cover. So I'm gonna sort of stretch this one because I would think like a clean cover is a book that is just like text on it or something. But I looked through what I have on hold, and I actually have on Everand an audiobook for Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, which is a mystery thriller book. And I'll put the cover here. I don't know if it's really like clean, but it is simple. It's just a red cover with a little bit of shading on the outside and like headphones, you know? So I'm gonna go with it. This is actually not a book that's on my TBR, to be honest. My mother-in-law read it and texted me about it and said I would really like it. So I got it out from Everand, and then I started doing readathons. This was back in August, I think. So I did a readathon in September. I don't think I did one in August. Oh, I guess I did Olympics-a-thon in August. And then in September, I was doing that readathon. And then in October, I was doing readathon. I am doing a readathon. And so it fits this time. So, but I've had it out since then, and I want to read it or listen to it. And the Goodreads synopsis is, what if you thought you murdered your best friend? And if everyone else thought so too? And what if the truth doesn't matter? It says, Lucy and Savvy were the golden girls of their small Texas town. Pretty, smart, and enviable. Lucy married a dream guy with a big ring and an even bigger new home. Savvy was the social butterfly, loved by all, if you believe the rumors, especially popular with the men in town. Oh, and if you believe the rumors, especially popular with men in town. Sorry. But after Lucy is found wandering the streets covered in her best friend Savvy's blood, everyone thinks she's a murderer. Years since that horrible night, a night Lucy can't remember anything about, and she has since moved to LA and started a new life. But now the phenomenally huge hit true crime podcast, Listen for the Lie, and its two good-looking hosts, Ben Owens, have decided to investigate Savvy's murder for the show's second season. Lucy is forced to return to the place she vowed she would never set foot in again to solve her friend's murder, even if she's the one who did it. Sorry I had to suffer through that. I can't see very well, and so I had to zoom on my computer screen. Anyways, I'm gonna start listening to this. It sounds pretty good. It has the stamp of approval from my mother-in-law who loves to read. If I like it, I will probably recommend it to my mom and my sisters if it seems like something that they're into, because I know my mom and my like middle sister they're really into like murder mystery stuff. Specifically my mom. I don't know that my sister cares that much about it, but I know my mom really likes it. And I think that's fun. So if I like it, I'll pass it on to them. But I'm gonna start now. I'm making this pasta for dinner. It's one pot orzo with spinach and tomatoes. It's like a tomato sauce, Parmesan, orzo thing. It should be pretty easy, so that's why I'm doing it. And it also should be pretty tasty. I love orzo. So that's what I'm making for dinner, and I will let you know when I have an update for this book. Hello. The shadows are weird. We are in the dining room because I'm about to eat dinner. It's leftovers night. So I made some leftover barbecue tofu that I made the other day, and I'm having it as a sandwich. And then I have yucca fries. So that's what I'm eating. But I'm here because I finished Listen for the Lie this morning when I was getting ready for work. I can't believe I listened to it so fast, but it was like unputdownable for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I wanted to stay up and finish it last night, but I realized I had like an hour and a half left. So I got up and listened to it this morning. It was so good, okay? It's a mystery. It's like a mystery thriller, but I would class it more as like a classic like whodunit style mystery. And the premise is that there was this girl, there were these two girls, Lucy and Savvy. And they'd known each other in high school, but they weren't really friends in high school. And then they came back to their small town after college and became friends again in their early 20s. And then Savvy was murdered, and Lucy was found wandering around the town in her, like covered in her blood. And everyone sort of thought that Lucy did it, but there was no hard evidence. Like there was no murder weapon. And Lucy has amnesia from the attack. She had a head injury, and no one really knew how that happened. So the whole time I was reading this, I think they wanted you, oh, I can't tell you that. I have to spoil the book. Sorry. But then the book starts picking up from present day, and it's like 5 years later. And Lucy's been living out in LA. She has this boyfriend, Nathan, that she lives with. And there's this podcast, like a true crime podcast coming out about this crime. And the podcast is called Listen for the Lie. And so the guy who's running the podcast is back in Lucy's hometown, and Lucy's grandmother really wants her to come home for her 80th birthday. And she's like, this might be my last birthday. And Lucy and her grandmother are very close. And so Lucy agrees to go home for the first time in 5 years to go to her grandmother's birthday. And when she's there, she ends up getting involved in this podcast, and they interview everybody from the town, and like they're going through how this murder might have happened. And then slowly you pick up the pieces. Okay, there's lots of clues. It's very mystery whodunit. Again, it's not really thrillery, I didn't find. Again, for me, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. For me, a thriller is a book that's like twisty and turny, which a mystery can be, and this one kind of is. But a thriller has more of like a fear of something happening, right? Like that's what I'm looking for in a thriller. When I read or watch a horror, I'm looking for something that is scary. Although I will say horror, when I read it, doesn't really scare me, but there are certain elements that I'm looking for. But when I'm watching a horror movie, I'm looking to be frightened. Whether it's like psychological horror, whether it's body horror, whether it's, I don't know, any other type of horror. But that's why like certain horror movies haven't scared me and have really let me down this year. And there's been a lot of discourse going around about like what makes a movie horror, and people getting really upset that people are saying that certain movies like Longlegs is not horror. I will say, to me, Longlegs didn't scare me. I thought it was boring. I didn't like it because I went into that movie wanting like a crime thriller horror movie, and I feel like it didn't deliver for me. Again, personally, a lot of people really love that movie. Apparently, I thought it was so boring. But this book, I think if you go into it wanting like a thriller, I think you'll be disappointed. It's much more like a mystery than it is like a thriller. There's no like, I didn't feel fear for the character, which is, tends to be what I feel when I'm reading a thriller. I hope all of that makes sense. But that doesn't mean I need to pick another book. I don't have my laptop handy, and it is, I believe, dead. So I will, in a minute, charge it, and then we can film a clip of me picking my next read. Other updates that I have, I'm still reading that fan fiction that I started that I'm not reading for any prompt in particular. I'm not really going to talk about it a ton. And I am reading, I need to finish The Turn of the Key. That's what I need to do, because I wanted to finish The Turn of the Key so that I could, and I'm rereading that. And I don't know why. It's just like there's so much new that I want to pick up that I'm like not really in the mood to reread, but I have so many rereads on the list of things that I wanted to reread this year. So it's being pushed a little bit. When I finish The Turn of the Key, that I might do that tonight. I hope I do that tonight. Because then I want to pick up The House of Leaves. Or House of Leaves? No, drop the. It's cleaner. But House of Leaves is next. I haven't started it yet, but I'm very excited to read it. And I will let you know what I pick for my next audiobook when I get my computer set up. But I'm going to do that right now so that I don't forget and that we can get that going. Okay. I am so dumb. I forgot that I actually already re-rolled. Oh, can you tell it's been a long day? I already re-rolled, and I landed on Shirley Jackson again. Oh, sorry. I already re-rolled, so I will insert those clips here. I did it at work. Okay. I landed on Shirley Jackson again, which the prompt is to read a book with a building on the cover. And so for this, I'm going to be reading Welcome to Lagos, which is a literary fiction book, I believe, and I hope I like it. I used to know what it was about. I don't remember anymore. It's been on my TBR on Goodreads for a long time. It's like the 20th book on that TBR, and that TBR is 1,300 books long. And actually, I think it's down to like 1,100 now, because I did clear out a bunch of stuff I wasn't interested in, but it's on the top of the list of things that maybe I won't be interested in, and if I don't like it, I will pick something else. But I hope I like it, obviously. I think it's about a guy who is like visiting Lagos, traveling to Lagos after being in a war, I want to say is like the premise. And I think his name is Chime. Could be wrong, but I have the audiobook already. So I don't know how I forgot about that, but I didn't have it before. It wasn't one of the books that I already had on hold for my library, which kind of sucks because those holds are like wallowing. That's not the right word. Languishing, maybe. But I will read it. I will let you know how it is, and then I will update you when I have an update. And I will talk to you soon. Hey guys, it's Sunday now. I don't remember when the last time I updated you, but we did go to Brew at the Zoo last night, which was very fun. I came home around 11, and Matt decided to go out with his friends, and I don't think they got here. I don't think he got back until like 4 or 5. So he's still asleep. It's like 2 o'clock. But yeah, it was super fun. This morning, my friend was in town. She lives in Kentucky normally, but she grew up here, and her like grandparent is here, and her grandparent actually passed away. So she was in town to see her right before she passed, which it's good that she was able to come. But we got breakfast this morning, which was very fun, at the restaurant that used to be like right down the street from the house that Matt and I originally lived in when we moved here. So that was really nice to go back to the old neighborhood. I'm checking in with you because I wanted to let you know that I'm DNFing Welcome to Lagos. I got like a quarter of the way in. It's a literary fiction book. It's kind of slow paced. It's very like slice of lifey, and there's a lot of characters, and that's the main reason I decided to DNF it. So there's like this group that has found each other, and they are a guy who's like a commanding officer in the Nigerian army, and then one of his subordinates who are against what the army is doing, so they defect. Is that what that's called? And then they run into a militiaman in the like bush, I guess, and he joins their little group. And then there's a woman who has run away from home, or like she's like probably late teens is what I'm imagining for her. I don't know how old she is actually. And I don't remember anybody's name, so I'm sorry about that. But it's been a couple days since I decided to DNF this, and I haven't like come back to tell you. I officially did it just now, but so they find her, and she's like running away from her family. And then they end up getting a bus together to go to Lagos, which I believe is the capital of Nigeria, but don't quote me on that. While they're there, they meet a woman who is escaping her abusive husband, and she joins their little group. So then there's 5 of them, and they're all just trying to make their way in Lagos society. Again, I didn't get very far because I just was kind of bored. The other thing is they follow somebody who works, he's not a politician, but he works for the politicians or for the government or something. And there's also a guy who is from a very like upper echelon of society, but works as a journalist. And he's got some issues with his family because of his job. And also his like magazine is going under or something, or his newspaper, whatever it is. He said some unfavorable things about the president of Nigeria, and people don't like that. So that's that, but I am gonna DNF it. I just don't care about it, and I feel bad about that, but also like I haven't wanted, it's the audiobook that I have, and I usually read the most audiobooks, and I just like haven't been in the mood to read it. So I've been like watching TikToks and watching YouTube instead, and that's a sign to me that I need to just get rid of the book. So it's a no for me, sorry. But instead, for the Shirley Jackson prompt, I'm gonna be reading The Last Thing to Burn, because I see a cover that's like red and it has a black house on it. And that's a building, so I'm gonna use that. This is a mystery thriller. Let me read you what it's about. It says, a woman being held captive is willing to risk everything to save herself, her unborn child, and her captor's latest victim in this claustrophobic thriller in the tradition of Misery and Room. So I've seen the movie Room. I have not read the book. I have not read Misery. I'm concerned that this will be like, what was that book called? There's a book that was like something like Nothing Like Ashes or Nothing But Ashes or something. I'm worried if this is like that, because that to me was a little torture porn-y. It's about these women who are being held captive in a basement, and then like they had a child, but they weren't telling the child which one of them was the mother. And I have a hard time reading stuff like that. So yeah, it says, on an isolated farm in the United Kingdom, a woman is trapped by the monster who kidnapped her 7 years ago. When she discovers she's pregnant, she resolves to protect the child no matter the cost, and starts to meticulously plan her escape. This sounds very much like that book that I read, but that one had like multiple perspectives. Some people were not captive. I can't remember how they all tied together, but they all tied together somehow. And I just really didn't enjoy that book. I gave it 2 stars. I think I read it this time last year. I think I read it for this readathon. So, but I'm gonna try to read this. I do have the audiobook on hold, or yeah, I have it for my library, and it's only like 240 pages, so it's not super long. We'll see how far I can get in it today. I'm trying to decide if I want to just listen to an audiobook and chill and maybe play like Speaka, or if I want to start trying to read House of Leaves, because I do need to do that if I'm going to read that, which I've decided that I am. I don't know. I think I'll just sort of see how I'm feeling, but yeah. So sorry if you're disappointed that I DNF'd Welcome to Lagos. I don't think anyone will care because I've never heard anyone talk about the book. I mean, I did at one point, obviously, I would never have picked it up, but yeah. So also, did I show you this? Matt did a gallery wall for us in our living room the other day. And we have a coffee table now. We built this yesterday. So yeah, the house is coming together. Things are looking good. I still need to put my library together. When will I ever get the motivation to do that? I don't know, but I I also just got done working. I worked for like 3 hours this morning, which is annoying because it's Sunday, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, you know? And what I gotta do is work, I guess. Anyways, I'll let you know when I have another update soon. If you missed my last week's video, it ended on me getting the prompt of Shirley Jackson DNFing the book I was reading, and I picked up a different book. Am I gonna remember what it was now? I just read it. Oh, The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean. That's what it was. I was like, I know, I just read this. So I finished it last night. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It's, to be honest, I've noticed about myself, there's a type of mystery thriller that I don't really enjoy. So this is a mystery thriller, and it's set in England. The other one I think was set in Ireland. So it's interesting that those are the ones that I just don't like. That's not why, but I just think it's interesting that they both have a similar setting. And the premise of this book is that there's a woman who, her name is Jane, but that's not her real name. She was kidnapped and she's living in this guy's house. It's about her trying to get away from him, trying to figure out if she can get away from him. And then the last thing to burn has to do with like the stuff that she has. He burns, like at the beginning of the book, she tries to escape and then he burns one of her things that she has remaining. And shocks out how she came with 18 things and now she only has 3 left or something like that. So that's the book. I personally feel like this book would have worked better for me if there were backstory. So we don't know really any sort of backstory, which means that like we go into it not really knowing where Jane came from, who she is. And like the author does tell you things as you go along, but I would have been more like, that's not a mystery. There's no mystery around her. There's no like big reveals or anything. There's no reason for him, in my opinion, to have not included the like, I think it should have started at the beginning, but at this point she's been captive for 7 years. And I just like find this type of thing kind of disturbing and like mentally exhausting to read. And it's just not something that I fully enjoy. But since I just DNF'd a book, I didn't want to DNF this one too. So I ended up finishing it. I gave it 2 stars. It's really just not for me. It's realistically more like a 1.5 star, but I rounded it up to 2. A lot of people seem to really like this book, which is the same thing for the other book like this. It was called The House of Ashes, maybe, by Stuart Neville. I didn't like that book either. And it's a similar thing where it's about a woman who's been held captive. That one has a dual timeline or a dual narrative. So it's about this woman who's being held captive and then another woman who is in an abusive marriage. And it's just about how like, and I think there might be another perspective in that book too. But anyways, I also read that for a Bookoplathon when it was in September, like 2 years ago. So I think it's interesting that I've gotten both of these books for this. But anyways, I went ahead and rolled again, so I will show you what I got. And as you can see, I did end up getting Time as a Mother. I landed on chance. I did my first little draw. I got Time as a Mother, which is a poetry collection by Ocean Vuong. I read another book by Ocean Vuong that I really enjoyed. However, this one, I tried to listen to the audiobook of it. I don't know if it's because it's poetry. I don't know what it is, but the way it was read by the author, which usually is the way to go for me for poetry because you get their like inflection. But I hated it. It was horrendous. So I put that down. Horrendous for me. I'm sure people who like poetry might like it. I just wasn't into it. So unfortunately, I did put that poetry collection down. I will not be continuing it. And I got another book. And it's called like Love in the Big City, I think. And I have an ebook of that. So I will read the ebook that I have of that. However, this does mean that I do want to pick an audiobook. So I might do that right now or I might do it tomorrow. Matt is not in tonight. He is going to a show. And so I think I'm going to use the time that I have right now. I'm really fighting for my life to not just binge the rest of Love is Blind because I started it this weekend and I'm really into it. For whatever reason, I haven't been that into the last like 2 seasons that I've watched. But this one has got me by the gills. I'm stoked. So I might watch that, but also I kind of want to get some like actual physical reading done because I normally don't prioritize that as much as I probably should. And I have a physical book that I need to read that I got last week, and that is The House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I have it upstairs. I might go get it. But it's like 700 pages. So if I'm going to read it this month, I really need to start it. And it's supposed to be a haunted house book. I am very nervous that I will not like it. And I'm basing that on some reviews that I saw on Goodreads. Some people think this book is brilliant. And like, I've heard that it's maybe not the best thing people have ever read, but it's the most unique thing people have ever read. I've heard other people say that they really feel like this author was just trying to make a unique, just do things that have never been done before. And that's what he did, and they don't like it. So I don't know where I'm going to fall. I'm interested to find out. But I think that might be what I start with. Let me look up what Love in the Big City is about, because I don't know what it is. It's by Sang-Young Park, and it is, it's the English language debut of this author. And they're apparently one of Korea's most exciting young authors. So that's exciting. I didn't realize that this was, it's not, oh no, it is translated. Okay, it's translated. So that's good for me. I'm trying to read more translated things. Okay, but it said it's an energetic, joyful, and moving novel that depicts both the glittering nighttime world of Seoul and the bleary-eyed morning after. Young is a cynical yet fun-loving Korean student who pinballs from home to class to the beds of recent Tinder matches. He and Jae-hee, his female best friend and roommate, frequent nearby bars where they push away their anxieties about their love lives, families, and money with rounds of soju and ice-cold Marlboro Reds that they keep in their freezer. I don't know why they would keep cigarettes in their freezer, but okay. Yet over time, even Jae-hee leaves Young to settle down, leaving him alone to care for his ailing mother and to find companionship in his relationships with a series of men, including one whose handsomeness is matched by his coldness, and another who might end up being the great love of his life. So, it is general fiction, like general queer fiction / contemporary, apparently. And it sounds like there's a romantic subplot, but that it's not necessarily a romance. So, like I said, I do have this as an ebook from Everand, I think is where I have it. Since there's not an audiobook, I'm going to go ahead and roll another prompt because I like to have an audiobook. You know me. I gotta add another die here. Okay, and now we roll 6, and we ended up over here on chance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 community shop. Okay, so I have 13 little prompts on my community chest. 2, let's see what we got here. Owned TBR, so read a book that I own via audio. This is gonna be annoying. Hang on. Okay, so that was actually very quick. I decided that I'm going to be reading The Plot by Jean Hompf Corlitz, which, let me pull it up. I do own it. I'm not sure exactly where it is right now, but I do have an audiobook of it as well. And this is a mystery thriller about, let me see if I remember off the top of my head what it's about. So I think it's about a guy who teaches, and he always wanted to be a writer, but he never like made it, I guess. And then his student has a manuscript that's really good, and something happens to the student, I think, and he steals the manuscript and publishes it. And or he steals it without something happening to the student, and then is being blackmailed or something of that sort. My mom actually is reading this for her book club right now, which I think is very funny. So if I finish it, maybe I can talk to her about it, which is exciting. I always love to talk to people about books, but I do own it. It's somewhere. So this is the audiobook that I'm going to have for now, which is exciting. And I will let you know when I have another update when I get further along in it, I guess. Hello, it's Thursday now. I just got back from dinner with some of my friends / old coworkers, which is really fun. And I have to update this vlog because I finished The Plot. I am waffling on what to give it. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars on Goodreads, maybe 5. It's like a 4.5 for me, so it's like really stressing me out trying to figure out what I should rate it. But it was so good. That being said, I did not think it was as unique of a plot as it purported to be. So the premise of the book is that there's this guy who's a teacher at an MFA program for creative writing, and he is an author. He's written 2 books. The first one did relatively well. The second one was a flop, and he's written a couple others since then and hasn't been able to get them picked up by publishers. So he's in this rut. He was supposed to be like one of the most talented writers in his MFA program, but he can't get anything else published. So he is now teaching, and he's got the student who has this plot that he tells him. That's like the best, most amazing plot of all time. And then fast forward a few years, the student has passed away and the book that he was going to write was never published. And so our main character decides, he takes it upon himself to publish this book, to write it and publish it. And there are a couple of things that I thought were really interesting about the story. The first is that we eventually do get snippets from the plot. And to be honest, it's a plot that not only have I seen this plot before, I've read 2 books that have a very similar plot. And one of them is like a very famous book, okay? And the other one has been called a ripoff of that very famous book. It's a thing, okay? And people have read it, okay? So I was confused by that. Not necessarily a terrible thing, but the way that they were talking about it, it was supposed to be like the most unique, amazing plot of all time. And I think the author just ran into this problem where like there really are only a handful of plots that you can do. And he talks about them in the book. Like there's the coming of age story, there's like versus an external force, man versus himself. There's like the hero's quest. There are a couple of different like thoroughfares that a plot can take, okay? And every narrative falls into one of these plot structures. Even if you do something different and you subvert a trope, like there are unique twists in books. This one I didn't feel like had that unique of a twist. But all of that being said, that didn't like horribly bother me. I feel like the author it felt like he couldn't really deliver on that aspect, which ultimately was fine because I still had a very enjoyable time reading this book and it didn't like get me down too bad because I thought the book was so fun. That being said, the other main like issue I have with this book is after he's published this book, he starts getting letters or emails rather from this source that is saying, I know that this book is stolen, you're a thief. And here's the thing. He didn't actually steal anything that was copyrighted, right? Like, so sure, it's not the best look to like publish something that you heard someone else talk about, like to write that book and like steal that idea, I guess. But you can't copyright ideas like that. You can't copyright a plot is what I'm telling you. Like there was a thing on book Twitter maybe a while back, like a year or 2 or more ago, I don't remember, where an author was getting really mad that she thought she came up with this unique idea to have a character that had powers from the sun. And then another book came out that was more popular than her book that had the same power structure where you could get power from the sun or you could have the power of the sun or something. I don't know. I didn't read any of those books. I think they were like YA fantasy, which I'm not saying I don't read YA fantasy, but like I just didn't read them, okay? Everyone was getting on her ass because they were like, that's a very basic thing. Like you can't copyright that. Same here. So I think if those things are going to bother you, you won't enjoy this, but I just really enjoyed the way that it unfolded. Like I had a really good time reading it. There is a big twist or like a twist in the book. I did call that from a mile away. I was pretty sure I knew what was going on, but you know, I had a good time reading it still. Like I wasn't sure how it was going to resolve, how it was going to wind up. And I did not expect it to end the way it did. So that was good. And yeah, I just had a really good time reading it, but I did go ahead and roll another prompt. So I will play that footage for you now. So as you saw, I did roll 2 prompts because I got a double the first time. So the first one was Becca Rec, which is a book that Becca from Becca in the Books is who hosts this readathon. And so you just had to pick a book that she has talked about on her channel. I'm pretty sure is how it ended up being. And then the other prompt that I landed on Ghostface again, which is a book that has a sound word in the title. And the book that I ended up going with is A Song of Wraiths and Ruins, because song is a sound word, and I checked, and Becca in the Books has talked about it on her channel. I went through her entire Goodreads, okay? I looked at her whole TBR to find a book that I already wanted to read that had a sound word, and there were that many sound words, and none of them were books that were already on my radar, or they were like the second, third, fourth book in a series, and I'm not gonna read 4 books in a series just to fill this prompt. And then I went through all the books that she's read. Same thing, basically. So I just looked through my TBR, and I looked them up on her channel and then clicked on the videos and tried to find them in her, like, what is it called? Not comment section, the little box that tells you what a video is about. I'm blanking on what that's called right now. I went through those until I found her talking about a book or referencing a book that I wanted to read. And this is a YA fantasy book. It's based on West African mythology. I'm not that far into it. I did start it, but I'm not that far into it. We've got 2 perspectives, Malik and Karina. And Karina is the daughter of the Sultana. So she's like the princess, okay? And then Malik is from a neighboring tribe in this area that is being persecuted, and so they have to have fake papers. And Malik has at least one sibling, if not two siblings, that he's like feels responsible for. And I don't really know how they interact. I did read the Goodreads summary, and it's something about how like they end up getting contracted to have to kill Karina. But then I have a feeling that this might have a romance subplot. I don't know. But Malik and Karina are the perspectives we have. So that's what I'm reading. So I will let you know when I have more updates on it. I also have started House of Leaves. I don't know if I've talked about this. I started reading House of Leaves. I got through the introduction and I think part of the first chapter. And this book, I mentioned it before, it's like a story within a story within a story, okay? So the premise, the introduction is written by this guy, Johnny, who has found all of these notes in this old man Zampero's apartment. Zampano, I think. And Zampano has all these notes that he was basically writing this story about a found footage film that he watched. But Johnny can't find any evidence that this film even exists. So that's all in the introduction, okay? None of this is spoilers. I'm not far enough along to spoil you, frankly. But the book is comprised of Zampano's notes, which Johnny has put into a narrative form. Johnny's notes on top of Zampano's notes, where he is like in the footnotes, editing things, supplementing things, saying stuff, giving his own backstory, okay? And then there's an editor's note on top of that that's like talking more about what either of them are saying. So it reminds me a little of The Handmaid's Tale, and I know this sounds odd, but if memory serves, it's been 15 years since I read The Handmaid's Tale. I was in like middle school, I think, when I read that book. In that book, you're reading this, I think it's a diary or something, and you're reading it, and then there's like historian notes. So it's similar to that, where you don't know who is telling the truth. And I have a sneaking suspicion in House of Leaves that no one is telling the truth. However, I've also been told not to say anything about it, really, so I'm not obviously going to be spoiling it. I don't know. I've heard some people say that it's so scary that you can't sleep at night. I have it on good authority that it's actually not that scary. So we'll see. It's supposed to be, again, one of the most unique books ever written. We'll see again if I agree with that. I posted on my Instagram stories that I was reading it, and I had like 3 or 4 different people who I am at like various stages of friendship / acquaintance with all be like, ooh, that book is so good. I just think it's funny that this book has people by their throats. So I'm excited to be reading it. I have not started the other book that I was going to read. I'm still planning on reading it. I hope I get to it. What is it called? Love in the Big City. So I hope I read that, but I haven't started it yet. Tonight, it's like 8:15. I don't think I'm doing any reading tonight. I think I'm going to watch the new Love is Blind episodes that dropped yesterday, because I didn't watch them yesterday, because Matt and I watched a movie. We watched It's What's Inside on Netflix. I thought that was so fun. I gave it 5 stars on my letterbox. I had a great time watching it. It's like a thriller, I would say, but it's about this group of college friends who are getting back together for the night before one of their friends' weddings. We're mainly following this couple, Cyrus and Shelby, and they're having some like relationship problems. Then there's this game element introduced, which was really fun. I don't want to spoil it for you, obviously, but it's a really great watch. If you've not seen it yet, I had a good time watching it. I had so much fun. So anyways, I'm gonna watch Love is Blind because I'm trashed for that show. And I will let you know when I have another update at some point. Also, I think I'm combining this video with last week's vlog because I never edited that footage together. I'm a very bad YouTuber and I will just put all of this together. And so it'll be like 45 minutes to an hour instead of being like 30 minutes. So I hope that's okay. But you will already know that because at this point we're hopefully more than halfway through. All right, I will talk to you when I talk. Hello, it's Sunday, and I have a couple of things to update you on. My fingers are green. I have green paint, various places on my body because we painted yesterday and then I touched up today. So we're doing our best. So that's update number 1. Update number 2 is I'm actually thinking I'm going to DNF, Song of Wreaths and Ruins. I just don't care about it. I'm like 40% of the way in. I don't really want to listen to it, which is fine, but like I just don't care about reading it. I might DNF the ebook. I didn't even start it, but I might just put it down. I say I didn't start it, so I might just like read something else. I don't know, I just like haven't been in the mood to read recently. I do want to keep reading House of Leaves, so I am going to continue doing that. And I'm not sure if I'm going to pick replacement books for the prompts that I have. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue Bookopoly another week because I'm just like, I'm not in the mood to read right now, which is kind of a bummer. But I also know that if I like force the issue, I'll just end up giving everything I read 3 stars or 2 stars or whatever. And I would rather spend my time reading things that I love. The other update I have is I did actually finish my reading challenge for the year. So technically, if I don't read another book for the rest of the year, I will still be a success in my own mind, which I'm not planning on doing that. Like, I am planning on continuing to read. Third update is Matt gave me my birthday present early. So my birthday's next Friday. It's the 25th. And I didn't know what I wanted this year. So Matt got me IKEA bookshelves because I do want to do a big library in this house and we have a room for it. So I'm gonna do that. So I might try to find a different audiobook and listen to something, or I might just watch YouTube videos while I build those bookshelves. I don't know if I'm gonna build both of them today, but I just kind of want to figure out the layout of the room. But anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm sorry that this is like probably really disappointing for people, but I'm not in the mood to read any of the things that I have out right now. And I don't know that picking another book from the same prompts is really do it for me. I will say, I could read Wolfsong by TJ Klune, which is a book that Becca has on her Goodreads, and it also has song in the title, and I got a hold of that in from my library, so I'm considering starting that. But it's like a pretty long audiobook. It's another start to a series, and I haven't really loved any of the TJ Klune I've read. I think I gave one 3 stars and one 4 stars. So like, I don't know if that's really the vibe either, but I do think that Wolfsong is like, it's like gay werewolves, right? Isn't that what it is? And I do typically like werewolves, I won't lie. So maybe I'll like it, but I don't know. So anyways, I'm gonna decide what I'm gonna do, but I do kind of want to build my bookshelves and then start putting together my library. So that's why I was really hoping I would have an audiobook that I loved, but since that's not really happening, I don't know. I'll let you know if I read anything else. Sorry to everybody for DNFing these books. I'm just not feeling it, bro. I can't help it. But that's it. I'll let you know when I have another update soon. I cannot believe I've got to really scrub my fingernails. But anyways, I'll update you when I update you. Okay, bye.